mental health took a big hit for everyone. Healthcare isn't just focused on treating what's broke anymore. Industry itself, 95% are startups. How to make these virtual consultations, virtual interactions even better. I think it's firmly embedded now into mainstream medical practice. It's made healthcare at home a reality. What makes you say yes, and put your hand in your wallet and say, I'm going to give you the money.
Hi, everyone. This is our first interview in 2022, and I'm really excited to welcome our today's guest. Her name is Tina Tan. Hi, Tina.
Hi, Alex.
Could you please, let's start with a short introduction. Could you please tell us a bit about yourself? How did you get into Medtech and digital health overall?
Yeah, great. So I love talking about myself. So I'll try to not spend the whole interview talking about myself. But I'm a business journalist, and I'm currently the executive editor of First Word Health Tech, which is an online news and analysis provider. So we cover only the digital health space. My background, I've been covering medical devices. I started off covering the classics of medical device space. There wasn't much scope for digital health as such in like the mid-90s, which is when I started my career. And being sort of I'm a bit of a geek, so I really found it interesting, all these sort of things around engineering, sort of creativity, and also I'm a bit of a hypochondriac, so it's sort of married to all my interests really well, engineering and healthcare together. And I'm constantly fascinated by all the innovations that are being churned out, in this space. So that's why I've sort of kept to this beat for nearly 25 years now. And obviously, it's more an evolutionary process how I got into digital health, because the noise around digital health just got louder and louder, say in the past 5 years. Of course, with the pandemic, it's just exploded. And with First Word Health Tech, we were originally a Medtech publication covering devices, but we noticed that there was just so much information going on in digital health and so much interest there that we decided to focus exclusively on digital health.
Very interesting. 25 years covering all the news about medtech and digital health later on. That's really impressive. I guess you've seen how healthcare actually started using technology, how first medical devices appeared in the market, and lots of other first-timers. Could you please tell us how you see the change of digital health and medtech specifically over the past years?
Well, I have to say, in terms of the amount of innovation that's going on, medical devices have always been an industry where there's always a very, very high level of innovation going on. In fact, the industry itself, 95% are startups creating, new products, new technologies, and it's got a very high level of M&A, because the big companies, would buy these startups and the innovations, make these technology acquisitions. And with digital health, basically, as I was saying in my introduction, digital health, in a sense, there's been talk about it for I'd say maybe the conversation started a decade ago or so, but it's just got louder and louder. And what I'd say the biggest change is the way digital health is viewed. Healthcare. So healthcare isn't just focused on treating what's broke anymore. So digital health technologies, I think people realize, it goes way beyond just virtual consultations. Even the language, the way we describe it, when it started out, it used to be called e-health, and mobile health, and was just talking about digitizing the infrastructure of hospitals. But now it's just broadened out into this great big universe of technologies and ecosystems that can sort of really transform the way healthcare is delivered and what therapies are and what they mean to people, and how they're being used. So I think the language has changed, the culture has changed, and also people's mindset around digital health has changed a lot. I think it isn't, like I said earlier, it isn't just about technologies isn't what make digital health. It's this whole sort of like people need to have buy-in into digital health to make it a reality. Like doctors need to have buy-in. So I think back to your question about like what has been the biggest change, I think we definitely have seen a shift in mindset, a shift in culture. And of course, this was accelerated hugely by the pandemic.
That's interesting. Thank you. If I ask you to pinpoint top 5 key events or people or innovations or companies that have the major impact on digital health development over the past years, what would they be?
I'm just going to focus on technologies actually, because I don't want to like play favorites and give like a shout out to people or like to particular companies.
All right.
And they're quite broad. I mean, the 5 sort of technologies that I've sort of picked, that I feel have made a major impact on health. So the first one is mobile devices. I'm talking about like smartphones and tablets. I mean, they provide the perfect platform, for delivering on-demand healthcare, because we have them on us all the time, so they're a perfect platform for like doctor consultations, for symptom checking, through Google, digital health marketplace, there's a lot of e-commerce going on. People can choose what insurance plans they want. Online pharmacies buy their meds online. And also, I think, almost everyone, people talk about the digital divide, how, with the uptake of digital health technologies, it might make more apparent this digital divide, those who have like, a mobile phone or have like connectivity versus those who don't. But I actually believe that, you don't have to have the latest Apple, phone, or like the latest iPhone, or the latest model, of what a mobile device in order to have access, because now you can have like a very standard mobile phone, which even, I know is accessible to a lot of people. I've seen parts of Asia, rural parts of Asia, where like there's a farmer out and he's like on his phone. So, and they've got connectivity there too. And, it makes healthcare so much more accessible, and doctors can reach out to those who may not have had access before, who might not be able to make the long trips to their primary care clinic. Right. So I think like a mobile devices is one thing that has really transformed healthcare. And then there's the area of neurotech. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm selecting things that have got me excited and kept me excited all these years. So things like neuromodulation and bioelectronic technologies. I mean, what neurotech does is it stimulates activity in the neural pathways, that brings about the same sort of therapeutic mechanism of action as a drug. So I think that's pretty cool, because within neurotech, there's different types of techniques. There's like deep brain stimulation that's been going on for a while. It's not all completely new, but I think where it's making lots of advances is that a lot of the implants are now getting less invasive, and also there are neurotech digital therapeutics that are non-invasive. Mm-hmm. And are showing a lot of like good clinical outcomes as well. And also they're becoming more precise. So, and they are really targeting things like within neurology, obviously, like pain management, even central, nervous disorders like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. I've written about, a company that's using a non-invasive neuromodulation device for autism, children with severe autism. And what's great is they can be used. They're also not only becoming less invasive or non-invasive, they can be used at home. So you don't have to go to the clinic. Again, it's becoming a lot more accessible. So I think that's one area I think that has really transformed healthcare. And then third one is robotics. I mean, in healthcare, we often hear about robotic technology making a big impact on surgery. Those like sort of like big sort of systems allowing surgeons to carry out sort of minimally invasive surgery. And of course, we've seen like it does provide better outcomes. Surgeons can like reach places in the body that they can't. They can obviously work longer because your hands, unlike manual, so laparoscopic surgery, your hand will be shaking after holding something for so long. But with robotic system, you can do the surgery a lot better for over a long period. And as I said, advances are definitely being made here in the sense that there used to be just one player, but now I'm seeing a lot of like sort of other competitive players coming out with quite pretty good systems that are less expensive, smaller footprint. They can do the things that the big sort of like leaders can do, and everyone wants in. I mean, I base a lot of like my excitement also around what people are investing the money on, and also what I think is really cool. And I've tried some of these like equipment, and it's easy to use. Even somebody like me was able to work out how to use like those graspers in a short while. And then within robotics, it's not just surgery, but there's just so much innovation going on here. It's mind-blowing. I've read about origami robots, I talk about accessing areas that you normally wouldn't be able to access. So these origami robots are folded, you might ingest it, and then it enters your body that way. And then a surgeon can then just like sort of like deploy it and like pull things out from your stomach, and then just naturally gets eliminated. I mean, like, how cool is that? So I got quite excited about such things, and then of course, beyond surgery, robots I think are making quite the presence known in the area of care. So we're talking about assistive robots, and because healthcare isn't just about treating what's broken, like I said, or what's bad. It's also about long-term well-being and health. So there's like assistive robots for the elderly or people with like limited mobility, and also for like a mental well-being, for emotional well-being. So I think that's an area that has made impact or will continue to make an impact on health. And then there's wearables. I won't talk too much about that because I think it's self-explanatory. It's because everybody now pretty much owns like a Fitbit or whatever. It's a smartwatch or a health tracker, and it's amazing. Like, because I remember the time when people, if they wanted to track, what we had was a pedometer, right? A step counter. But I don't know how old you are. But like, I remember that was as far as wearables went in terms of like well-being. But now the things that these wearables can do, the apps, and it really is quite amazing. I think we'll definitely just keep seeing more significant leaps and bounds being made in that area. And then last of all, I mean, this is a pretty broad sort of like technology, but I think I have to point out, and that's AI. And I think where I'd say the biggest benefit of AI is, and what I see in terms of making an impact on health, is that what AI can do, it takes the burden out of mundane, laborious tasks. It automates processes, and it can do it at scale and speed things up. So I mean, this can be applied, and it is being applied to so many like different areas. So we're talking about AI being applied looking at imaging scans, so it saves like the poor radiologist time, and to scour through, and it might pick up things that a tired radiologist might miss. Cross-referencing test results, checking patient records. And also in pharma research, AI is being applied to scour these massive data sets, to check potential molecular interactions and assess the viability of therapeutic candidates. I mean, AI really has changed so many things in healthcare, and we don't even know because it's like that it's there, because it's the sort of the engine behind like so many of the health tech that we see today, the apps, the health apps, digital therapeutics, even symptom checkers, things like that, the chatbots. So I think AI has made a huge impact there. So that's my 5.
I love your list. Very interesting. Thank you. I wanted to talk a little bit about, of course, the pandemic and what it brought to, of course, it changed our lives forever already, but hopefully it gave some boost for digital health. So what do you think are the main biggest changes that the pandemic brought to the industry?
So I think the biggest change about that the pandemic has brought on is that it's brought healthcare to the home. It's made healthcare at home a reality. Mm-hmm. It started out as a necessity because we weren't allowed to go anywhere. All of us had to stay at home, and we were told not to go to hospitals or to clinics unless absolutely necessary. So things like teleconsultations were enforced, and I think what we learned is that people, not just the general public, but doctors themselves who may have been resistant to, virtual consultations, realize that actually it's all right. We can do it. It is doable. And actually, hey, there are benefits to it. It's actually quite nice. For people, I don't have to go wait in a waiting room with people sneezing on me all the time. Or like a doctor can actually do it from their own home. They don't have to go into the clinic. So it gives them the flexibility of, it's sort of like a better sort of work-life sort of balance. So it obviously did bring a massive boom to telehealth. And though, we hear about how it might have, say, the volume of telehealth consultations have scaled down a bit, I think the industry as a whole, basically, I think it's firmly embedded now into mainstream medical practice. So it's not going away. It's not going to go back at all to like pre-pandemic levels. And I think the next step, for companies who are interested in or developing technologies in the space is how to make these virtual consultations, virtual interactions even better for the patient and the physician, how to make it more seamless, whether it's just improving the scheduling and like appointment management, or making sure that patients do get connected to the right physician, and also just things like tools. There are quite a few companies developing sort of like scanning tools that they could use during the virtual consultation on themselves, so that the doctor can get information about what their, what the patient's health status is. So things like that. I think that is definitely the next step for this sector. And another change I'd say that the pandemic has brought on is that people are definitely a lot more conscious about their own health, and they're taking more ownership of their health. So, being at home, they've had time to focus more on, I guess, like cooking better meals, or even like focusing things on like doing some exercise, I'd say the pandemic really brought personal health into focus. And so I'd say products, tools, solutions, anything that can sort of enable people to stay healthy at home, whether it's online fitness programs, online nutritional apps. You don't necessarily have to have a chronic condition like diabetes or hypertension, but things like mental health apps or general emotional health apps, those are going to be pretty popular still for like as we move on to sort of like the post-pandemic new normal sort of era.
Hopefully that era starts soon. The post-pandemic one.
Yeah, I'm optimistic.
Right. And since we've talked about the boost that the pandemic gave to the industry, let's talk a little bit about the investments. I know that you talk and you partner with lots of VCs and angels, and you cover a lot of news about investments and new rounds for startups. So what types of digital health technologies are attracting the most investment nowadays? What do you think?
Well, I had a look through, what type of companies or what type of technologies were the most popular in times, not in terms of the deal size, but like the volume of like investments, because some of them could be just small investments. They range in different sizes, but the companies or technologies that got attracted the most number of sort of like venture funding were technologies involved in virtual primary care. So they're not necessarily the platform itself that enables that sort of consultation between patient physician, but actually things, as I mentioned earlier, like that makes the process a lot more seamless. So there could be components like I say, the scheduling management, automating scheduling, or even billing, helping with the billing, or even like appointment reminders. Also a lot of around patient engagement, trying to get the patients as engaged with their own health as possible. Things like that. That's really sort of got investors' attention. And then I think the other area the other therapy area that we saw interest in is like mental health, the mental health and behavioral space. As we all know, we all went a little bit crazy with the pandemic, and mental health took a big hit for everyone. And I think it really brought to light the importance of having access to supportive tools, so solutions, and on demand, and I think before it used to be, I guess there was a bit of stigma around like trying to seek help for mental health, but now it's really taken that stigma away. I feel the pandemic or helped to, people are a lot more open about it. So I think the apps that can help with like the mental health, behavioral health, will continue to attract investment. And this will sort of like, I think what we'll see also is within this realm, people are going to try to specialize a lot more. So we have, we're seeing a lot of money going into pediatric mental health solutions for young people who are also, if not more affected by the pandemic than anybody else. And so there are sort of like what we call youth mental health focused digital health companies. And I think that will gain a lot of traction and continue to be quite a hot space.
In the beginning of answering the previous question, you've mentioned the virtual care, and I could not ask about the metaverse, which basically everyone's talking nowadays. What kind of startups are going to help shift healthcare into the metaverse, and what's your opinion in general about the metaverse and all the boom and news about it?
Well, actually, I mean, the metaverse, it's basically a simulated environment. It's the enabling technologies, the technologies that are used within the metaverse is basically extended reality technologies and like AI, and then connectivity, sort of like sensors to pick up things. So I think it is quite exciting. Again, it's not new. It's just Mark Zuckerberg just made metaverse into such a buzzword now. I think there were already steps happening for healthcare to be sort of embedded in this sort of simulator environment. I think a lot of innovators saw the applicability, or rather the utility of having this sort of simulator environment where, for example, with a digital twin, there's a lot of work going around digital twins. At the moment, they're being probably used mainly by pharma companies, whereby they could use it in drug development or clinical trials, and test out the viability of their therapeutic candidates. But funnily enough, I'm going to be speaking to a key opinion leader in this area, Dr. Seychelles from like the Media Innovation Lab at Miami. And he is he's been working on the digital twin technology, and the mission, which I think has a broader health application, is that this digital twin could be used by doctors to sort of test out medications on the patient before they actually, and see how it works out before they actually prescribe it to the individual patient. So I think it's a really exciting area. And of course, we already see things like I talked about digital surgery, talked about robotics. A lot of it, some of the systems do include elements of extended reality in it. So there's a lot of work in terms of AR, VR being used in the operating room. Companies I've come across, I'll just throw a name out, like Proximy, they are making huge advances in terms of digitizing the operating room. It's really cool what they're doing. They can basically, it's about accessibility, making clinical expertise accessible to another operating room across the world. And they basically virtually transport a surgeon to an operating room where procedures being done, and they can help and guide and advise, the surgeons then on wherever the other side of the world is. And so I think the metaverse, the term metaverse is sort of become so hot now, but work has definitely been going on in terms of like trying to embed healthcare. People have recognized already that healthcare is moving in that direction. And I think probably, it probably would do like startups who are in AR, VR, the use of that, like a lot of good. I think Mark Zuckerberg probably did do them a favor, because investors love these sort of things. So it probably would get a lot of attention now if you mentioned that in your pitch or something in your slide deck.
Right. Just a random question. 2021, once you were covering lots of startups and lots of new startups appeared, can you just select maybe one startup that like amazed you and you're like, wow, this is great, this is something really new nobody was doing before? Is there anyone that comes to your mind?
So I wouldn't pick one particular company. I'd say one area that does really sort of bowl me over are the companies within like neurotech, especially the non-invasive ones. And many of them are still in the sort of clinical trial stage. So, they hold the promise of like being able to really like treat very serious conditions such as Alzheimer's. I mean, for me, it would be amazing if they actually do. They are showing promise at the moment in the early stage trials, but if they actually deliver and they can do it, I mean, how great would that be to be able, Alzheimer's is just one of like the hardest diseases to treat. If they can actually deliver and like make available a product that all you have to do is just a non-invasive product that you put wear over your head and like and go through like therapy so many times a week for a few weeks, and it can really save someone. Because I even though Alzheimer's isn't life-threatening or fatal per se, it has such a detrimental impact on people's lives. So I think in that area, that's what I think is really quite amazing, the things like people are doing there.
We all hope these startups are going to succeed in what they're doing.
Yeah, I hope so too.
My last question, actually, I would like to ask you to maybe give some recommendations or piece of advice for startup founders, because I'm sure you talk to lots of them and some of the mistakes or errors they do often. Maybe you could give some kind of piece of advice for startup founders so they actually get to that point where their startups is successful as soon as possible.
So I'd say, I mean, these are the sort of questions I ask investors as well. Like, what do you seek? What makes you say yes, and put your hand in your wallet and say, I'm going to give you the money? I think what it is that they, first of all, have to be very realistic and honest about what they can deliver. First of all, everybody loves, don't get founderitis and absolutely be in love with your technology. Make sure that, it really, obviously you need to do a clinical trial to make sure that it works, but like be realistic about it, about what you can deliver. And just be honest, don't completely puff it up to something that and promise things that you can never ever deliver. I think that's the thing that gets people the most. And sometimes, I don't know if I can swear on here, but like there's a lot of people with very sharp bullshit detectors, so don't think you can pull the wool over people's eyes, you know what I mean? So like, I think honesty, be honest and be realistic about your innovation, right? It might be so cool in your eyes, and like, of course, you like bounce it off your friends, and of course they're going to be nice to you and just say, yeah, okay, that's really cool, but they're not going to tell you the truth. Maybe, I think, piece of advice is, if you want to like test your idea, use use like the harshest person ever. I don't know, maybe if you know somebody who is if your friend who's an investor, maybe not a friend, but I don't know, try to get it to like the biggest critic ever, and like don't be afraid, so that they can pick holes. You need to have a thick skin, and then make sure that your product is really, really good. And I think once you have a really good product, it sells itself either to investors and to your end customers. So like I say, I think honesty and realism, being pragmatic about it. Yeah.
This is great. This is great advice. Thank you. And thank you for this great conversation. Lots of interesting ideas and insights. Thank you, Tina.
No, thanks again so much for having me, Alex. I really enjoyed talking to you today.
Thank you.